What's up? It's your girl FrumpyFit. If you don't know who I am, I'm an online weight loss coach who's dedicated to calling out all the BS in the fitness industry and providing you with accurate fitness, nutrition, and weight loss information. Today we're answering the question, should you count your calories? Should you track your food? Should you even calculate your calories? And this video is inspired by two different things. Number one, the video I posted last week was my response to Abby Sharp and Obese to Beast reacting and responding to some of my weight loss tips, including my advice about counting calories or tracking your food. And Abby brought up a really good point that I wanted to expand on a little bit. And she said that not everybody needs to track their calories in order to learn about food, because I really believe that tracking your food can teach you a lot about food. This inspired me to create this video. How do you even decide whether or not you should be the type of person who's tracking their food or not? How do you know it's going to be beneficial for you or not? The second thing that inspired this video, it's honestly a long time coming. I posted a video about how to calculate your calories and it got 640,000 views, which is crazy. I actually posted this video when I had 200 subscribers and I don't even know how many followers on Instagram. And the question I got most often was people asking me how to calculate their calories. So I was like, I'm just gonna film a quick video explaining the basics and how I do it for my clients without a bunch of extra fluff. I wanted it to be short and concise. And if I had known that many people were gonna view that video, I would have explained a lot more. I would have mentioned other things that I think are important, including that not everybody should be tracking their food. Not everybody should be calculating their calories. It's not the right decision for everybody. So that's why we're gonna jump in and I'm gonna help you guys answer some questions and figure out if that's something that you should try or not try. And one more thing before we jump into the details, this video is sponsored by Magic Spoon. This cereal, you guys, is so good. It has absolutely become a staple breakfast of mine. It has so much protein in it compared to any other kind of cereal or a lot of other breakfast options. It's gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, sugar-free. So if any of that is important to you, this is it's a fantastic option. And so since I talked about them the last time, I need to give you guys an update. Fruity is no longer my favorite flavor. It's Frosted. Frosted literally tastes like marshmallows. I'm not even making that up. It's so good. And another update since I talked about Magic Spoon last, they are now allowing you to build your own variety pack. So you get to choose the flavors that go into the variety pack they send out to you. And they now have a peanut butter flavor and a cinnamon flavor in addition to cocoa, blueberry, frosted, and fruity. And I haven't tried the cinnamon yet, but I got my eyes on it. That's coming up next. If you're interested in trying Magic Spoon, you can use the link down in my description and you can use the code FRUMPY, which will get you $5 off. Thanks, Magic Spoon, for sponsoring this video. Okay, the very first thing that I think you should consider when you're deciding whether or not you should track your calories or even pay attention to calories is your age. If you are under 18, I do not recommend tracking your calories. And of course, everything that I mentioned in this video is just gonna be a general recommendation. It's not absolute. So does that mean if you're under 18, you should absolutely not ever track your calories? No, there are gonna be some people where it's just fine. But as a general rule of thumb, if you are still growing, if you are not an adult yet, I do not recommend any form of strict dieting, including calorie tracking. That would be the first thing that I would consider. I see a lot of young people asking me about tracking calories and I wouldn't even go there. If you are having health issues associated with your weight and you're wanting to embark on a weight loss journey at a young age, that needs to be something that is supervised by a professional 100%. Do not try to go at it by yourself. The next thing I would consider is your relationship with food. If you have a previous history of disordered eating, calorie tracking may not be the right decision for you. That being said, I do know people who have a previous history with disordered eating and calorie tracking is super empowering for them now and they do enjoy it, but it's just something that you want to be extra careful about because calorie tracking could feed into those mental patterns and thoughts that are associated with disordered eating. Does that mean that calorie tracking will always lead to disordered eating? Absolutely not, but it's just something you want to consider if you have a tough relationship with food. That being said, I also think that if you think that it might harm your relationship with food, let's say you're good right now, no history of disordered eating, and you think that the idea of tracking calories doesn't sound like it would be healthy for you, then just don't do it. I mean, there's no harm in trying it, but the second that it feels restrictive and not healthy for you, put it away. Just decide that that's not going to be the right thing for you. There are so many different ways to go about a weight loss journey and your diet, and you can achieve weight loss without going on a diet. And I'll talk more about like mindful eating is the other suggestion that I have. So basically, like if calorie tracking isn't right for you, my number one recommendation moving on from that would be mindful eating. And I think I would have to make a whole other video talking about mindful eating because it's not something you just Google. Like it's not a diet. Like you can't look it up and find all the rules. Like it just is mindful eating. But I have a lot of strategies that I help encourage people to get into like more of a mindful eating mindset. I used this example in the video last week with Abby and John from Obese to Beast, and that I recently spoke with somebody who on certain days calorie counting feels restrictive, on other days it feels empowering. So it's never going to be black and white. We live in a gray area, and I think that we should all look at things with the scope of like not rose-colored glasses, but like gray-colored glasses. Like how can I look at this in non-absolutes? And so if calorie tracking is empowering for you some days, cool, use it as a tool when it makes sense for you. But if it's feeling restrictive, set it aside and just you don't have to go there. And none of this is to like scare you away from calorie tracking. We're just discussing like, should you do it or should you not do it? And so I'm giving you all the reasons that you probably shouldn't. But I know so many people, and this is true for myself, calorie tracking is so empowering for me, and it's empowering for a lot of my clients. And this is something that I make sure, like if a client wants to work with me, this is the strategy I use. I use calorie tracking. So if I don't think that calorie tracking is a good fit for that person, I don't take them on as a client. And it doesn't mean that like there's anything wrong with you if calorie tracking isn't empowering. That's not a bad thing. Like everybody is unique and different, and one is not better than the other. And the last thing that I would consider when you're trying to make this decision is, what are you going to get out of it? What do you plan to get out of calorie tracking? Are you just using it as a way to restrict your calories? Then I don't think it's the right decision for you. My approach to calorie tracking is that it's a temporary tool to help you get results in the short term, but then teach you about food in a way that helps you get results in the long term without calorie tracking. So if you're going into calorie tracking with the like sole purpose of, this is just gonna make sure that I'm restricting my food enough to lose weight, and that's it, and you have no exit strategy from it, you're not really looking at it as an opportunity to learn, I don't think calorie tracking is the right decision for you. I know the temptation with diets is like to just find something that tells you what to do and follow it somewhat mindlessly. Mindful eating and learning about food takes a lot of effort, a lot more than just with a typical diet. So if you're not coming at it from that scope, from that mindset, then calorie tracking is just like any other diet, and it can have a negative effect on your relationship with food, and it's not likely to get you long-term sustainable weight loss either. Which, what's the point of doing this if it's just not gonna last in the long term? The next thing I'd ask is, are you using calorie tracking as an excuse to not care about food quality? Like there's something called IIFYM, or if it fits your macros. And the premise behind all of this is you can really eat whatever you want. As long as you hit your macros, you'll still get the results that you're looking for. And this is true whether we're talking about macros or we're talking about calories, because macro counting is just kind of like a different way to go about making sure your calories are in the right place, like a more specific way, paying attention to protein, carbs, and fat. And so I've definitely said this before, you can eat whatever food you want. As long as you're in a calorie deficit, you'll lose weight. That doesn't mean that you should do that though, and I would never recommend that. We wanna make sure that you are taking care of your health as a number one priority. Eating foods typical of like that IIFYM mentality of like, I can eat whatever I want, typically makes you hungry because you're eating a lower volume of food, because the foods are higher in calories. It's like you want to still eat the nutrient dense foods that are higher volume because they're going to fill you up, make you feel super satisfied. So my strategy with calorie counting or tracking your food in general, whether it's macros or calories, is to have a baseline of a really nutritious diet and then play around with fun stuff on top of that with whatever's left over. And so that way you get the flexibility, but you are also taking care of your physical health and making sure that you're not going to be starving and miserable the whole time. So if you're using calorie counting as a way to eat as much whatever kind of food and not really pay attention to your health, I don't think calorie counting is the right decision for you. The last thing I'm going to ask you to consider is, are you using this as a way to be mindless? And I kind of already mentioned this before, but like if you're going about it saying, I just need to hit this exact number of calories no matter what, and you're not actually going to be paying attention to like your hunger signals, how you feel, like you're using this as a way to completely like detach from everything else, then I don't think calorie counting is the right decision for you. And I'll give this example. What I see a lot of the times when people are tracking their food and trying to hit a specific calorie goal, which is also why I give my clients a calorie range rather than an exact goal, is because they tend to forget about their hunger and like their needs for the day. So when you calculate calories, especially if you followed my video, you're getting an average. And so the average is based on how many times per week you're exercising. And so what a lot of people don't really think about is that you're not doing this, you're not really burning the same amount of calories every single day. And so it doesn't necessarily make sense to eat the same amount of calories every single day either. It's really just an average, which is why I give my clients a range and then I monitor their average calorie consumption. I remember when I was tracking my macros for my bodybuilding competitions, which I don't know if you can see up there, my little trophies are right there. When I was tracking for my bodybuilding competition, I had a specific set of like macros to hit, an exact number of calories to hit every day. And there was some wiggle room a little bit, like 5 grams, like above or below was considered hitting your macros. But there were nights where I was like, okay, I'm not hungry anymore, but I have to hit my macros. So I would eat even though I wasn't hungry. And then there were also nights like PMS time where I would be extra like ravenous and I would finish all my food for the day and I just couldn't eat, even though I was starving. You know, from a bodybuilding perspective, it's sort of a part of the sport. I think I could have been a lot more flexible, even though I already was pretty flexible. I'm talking about like insane PMS cravings was the main time that I like felt hungry, but ran out of macros. Other than that, I didn't really feel too bad at all. But I don't ever want a client to be in that situation where they're honoring the numbers rather than honoring their body. And so what happens is people will hit these exact calorie numbers or these exact macros over a long period of time. And then when they try to stop doing that, they have no clue how much to eat because number one, they weren't paying attention and learning as they were going through it, but also they've learned to ignore their natural hunger signals and think freely for themselves of like, okay, I did an extra hard workout today. That's why I'm more hungry. I'm on my period this week. That's why I'm extra hungry. Like it makes sense to eat more food today. And I think turning that off and ignoring those things, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. So if you're wanting to come at it from that approach, calorie tracking is probably not the right decision for you. All right, let's wrap up the video talking about why calorie tracking might be the right decision for you. And it's essentially kind of the opposite of everything that we talked about previously. If you are 18 or older and you think that you can objectively make this decision for yourself and that it would be healthy for you, then it's something you should consider or you can consider. And if you think that calorie tracking would be a great way and healthy way for you to learn more about food, about balance, about how food like works within your unique life, then it's something that you can consider. If you are looking at not only the short term and the temporary, but the long term, and you think that calorie tracking can eventually serve you in a long-term sustainable way, then it's something that you should consider. And I know I've talked a lot about like transitioning out of tracking and how that's something that you should be considering from the beginning to make sure you're getting the most out of tracking in the temporary and in the short term. So if you guys have more questions about that, let me know. I can answer them in the comments or maybe make a separate video about it. But that's essentially it. I don't want to influence you one way or another. I just want to give you some thoughts, some ideas, provoke some things in your brain of like, oh, hey, maybe calorie tracking does sound like the right decision for me. Maybe I should rethink my decision to try calorie tracking because I don't actually know if it's the best fit for me. Like that's just what I want to inspire. So I'm not trying to sway you one way or the other. I hope that I remained or seem to remain fairly neutral because that was my goal. I just want to remind you, I feel like I've said this a million times, always make the decision for you, not for anybody else. You're a unique individual and not every single thing, not every single strategy, not every single anything is meant for every single person on the planet, okay? So step back, evaluate for you, and you'll be fine. So that's the end of the video. As usual, guys, thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe here. You can also follow me on TikTok and on Instagram, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.